Welcome back, gluten-free friends, to a new episode of the Good Gluten-Free Grub podcast. My name is Lauren. I am your host, and today I have a hot topic that we're going to talk about. There's a lot of curiosity online and a lot of skepticism around the NIMA Gluten Detection Sensor. You've probably seen me post about it online. You've probably seen some positive, some negative. And I used to be a NIMA partner before 2019 when the NIMA sensor was first introduced and we were using it, and I found it to be a great tool. The company went under and we didn't have this NIMA sensor for quite a while. But in 2025, the NIMA sensor was brought back to life. And today I have the CEO of NIMA, Mike Glick, and he's here to talk with us about the new and improved NIMA and how it can be a really great tool for you living with celiac disease and hoping that you can get some confidence out of dining out. So welcome, Mike, to the podcast.
Thank you, Lauren. Excited to be here. And hello, everybody. I'm excited to talk about NIMA, talk about why we came back, what we're doing, and how we could potentially help you out.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Like I said, there's a lot of discussion happening online about the NIMA sensor, and that's great. It's a buzz topic right now in the celiac community, and I knew that having you on the podcast was going to be something that was going to be really helpful for people to make an educated decision on if the NIMA sensor is something that's going to help them. And we were talking about earlier how, there are some people that are very seasoned celiacs and they don't feel like it's a tool that they need, and that's okay. But there are a lot of people that are in the new stages of celiac disease and feel the overwhelm that this new diagnosis has. And we want to touch on all of the awesome things that NIMA has done that have changed. And it's really important that companies change, right? We want companies to improve. We want science to change. We want that. So let's get into it. I want to ask you the hard questions. I want to pick your brain a bit so that consumers have all of the information that they need to make a decision. So walk us through what happened with NIMA before you joined NIMA, because you're new to the company, right? You just joined last year. But what can you tell us for somebody who isn't super familiar with NIMA, like what happened and why it went under?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the how it started, because I think it is important, it is powerful, and it was really started at MIT by two different students. One had celiac, one had food allergies, and together they built this amazing device. And in 2013, and really spent the next 5 or 6 years building it, telling people about it, getting more and more people using it. And I think they did a great job of developing the initial NIMA, and they ended up exiting and selling the product and the business to Medline Industries. Medline's a big medical equipment distributor, and about a year after it was sold, COVID happened, which obviously disrupted supply chains. And when Medline looked at the supply chains and the difficulty of making products in general, they chose to focus on other products, ventilators and larger equipment that were gonna really be focused more on the masses. And so they basically shelved NIMA. And for 5 years, NIMA was just kind of there. It was still owned by Medline. There was a group that worked with Medline to be able to sell and distribute NIMA as much as possible. But they didn't quite have the money to build a sustainable business. And so between, kind of 2019, 2020 and 2025, it was just a period of a lot of turbulence. And there were a lot of former NIMA users who, unfortunately have had sensors and couldn't get capsules anymore. And so I've heard a lot of stories about this. And what happened was Peter Kolchinsky, who is the founder of a group called RA Capital out of Boston, it's a big biotech investment business, and he himself has a son who has celiac.
Okay.
He was a user of NIMA, and so he actually reached out to Medline and said, can I buy some more inventory? Where can I find it? What can we do here? And ultimately, Medline was able to sell to the business, to RA Capital. And so when that happened, Peter invested significant money to be able to bring the business back to life. And so spent several $1,000,000 in over a year to completely rebuild the sensor and the capsules from scratch.
Wow.
Every aspect was reviewed. The quality was checked. All of the raw materials, the whole supply chain was stood back up. And then I came in to really lead the team as we relaunch. And so I joined in September. We relaunched capsules in November. We relaunched sensors in January. So we are only
boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
4 or 5 months in.
Yeah.
And it's exciting though. And I'm happy that we have a product that's back out there, that the people who did use it historically have been asking for it. And so, I'm happy to be able to come back and bring them something back. But what else is exciting is we do have about 1,000 new customers who have never bought a sensor before, and just in the first few months, we've already got new people that are jumping in, buying it, using Nima, and feeling safer at every meal.
That's awesome. I feel like that the guy who reached out and was like, "Hey, I want to buy some capsules," and then ends up being the guy to invest in this. That is just such great evidence of like, "Hey, we were using this and it was helping our lives, and we miss it. We want it." Right? Mm-hmm. He's not an influencer, right? He's just like a consumer that is like, "This helped my son's life." Right? I feel like that's a really cool testimony of how the Nima can help give you peace of mind, especially as a parent. I mean, I'm an adult and I'm doing this as an adult, but there's so many parents out there that are like, I'm sending my kids out into the world and hoping that they're doing their best, right? So there's lots of different people that are benefiting from this. So what made you want to join Nima? What's your background and how come you joined Nima? Where did you see the excitement in that?
Yeah, I have a background in nutrition, spent several years at Abbott Nutrition, and I ended up working on some very specialized products, including Alimentum, which is a product that is fully hydrolyzed for babies to replace their basic infant formula, to use something that can be more palatable and reduce colic, especially for those kids that have allergies. And then I also worked on NICU products for the smallest of infants, and ultimately ended up going to startups about 8 years ago. And those startups were almost all focused on food allergies. So one was around prevention of food allergies, so getting, and this was before the AAP changed their stance on peanuts. Being able to be given to kids early. But we were giving basically 16 different allergens as early as 4 months of age, working with Stanford and Northwestern and some other big schools. And we were able to significantly reduce the prevalence of allergies among the groups that actually use this product. And ultimately that was sold to Nestle. And then some other businesses that were all food allergy based. And in that space, celiac is not a food allergy. It's an autoimmune disease. Mm-hmm. It's not like an IgE-mediated food allergy, but the way it presents, the concern that you have is very, very similar, right? It's a concern about food, and is this thing safe for me to eat? Whether it is a bar that you're eating, or a restaurant, or you're going over to grandma's. Whatever it is, you need to be careful not to eat whatever that ingredient is that's going to cause you harm, whether it's an allergy or gluten related for celiacs. And so I spent a lot of time in that area. One of the things is I went to a meeting and I happened to see somebody actually using a Nima, and this was back in 2019. And I was just so impressed, and I had to ask, what is this thing? And she explained it to me and showed how it worked. And I just thought it was the coolest thing to be able to be in a group like that at a meeting with 100 other people and be able to eat the meal with people, because she tested her food first. And fast forward years later, right after the company went under, and then RA Capital brought it back, and I see this job. Someone reached out to me, and told me about the CEO position, and I was very interested because I remember seeing the
Yeah,
NIMA and because
that's
of
so
my
cool.
experience in food allergy and the fact that, I really want to continue to focus on helping as many people as I can. And I think NIMA is a great way to do that.
Yeah, what a cool background. I mean, it's so reassuring to me that not only does the CEO understand celiac disease, but you also understand food allergies and how, that it rules our lives. It is like such a big part of our everyday, every time we leave the house, every time we have
Hmm.
interactions with other people, having a food centered disease, chronic illness, allergy, autoimmune disease, whatever it is very, very present in
Hmm.
our lives. And unless you live with that, you really don't understand what that looks like. So, how cool that you saw someone using this device. You're in the food allergy space already, and you're like, whoa, what is this? And now,
Hmm.
fast forward, here you are, the CEO, and you're seeing the difference that this is making. I just think that that's so cool. And that gives me, and I hope that it gives listeners the reassurance in knowing that the guy behind this understands. He knows what's going on, right? And I'm sure now that you've been the CEO for a while, you're hearing stories of how the NEMA is making a huge difference in people's lives, right? And that is just such a rewarding, cool thing for you. Um, so the a lot has changed, obviously, since
Hmm.
2019. And so I want to kind of talk about, because I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions online right now is people are just thinking, oh, it's back. And it's the
Yep.
same
Yep.
exact thing. And it's
That's
not the
right.
exact same thing. So let's talk about what the differences are from the NEMA that existed and, pre-COVID basically, and the NEMA that exists now.
Of course, I think it really all starts with really two things. One, when we got the inventory, there were no blueprints to remake
Okay.
the NEMA. And so the team literally had to go back to the basics and figure it out. And so they brought in some of the original builders and then brought in a lot of new experts. And so they were starting fresh on how do we make a sensor and a capsule that work and are powerful. I think the other piece is that we heard from you. We heard from many of the previous users who were asking questions not only about where's inventory, but how can you make this better? What can you do differently? Okay, they didn't like the app. They didn't like that it was only 20 parts per million in terms of the measurement. They wanted it to go lower. A few other things that they didn't necessarily like. And so what we did was as we were rebuilding it, we fixed those things. And so, for instance, before a capsule could basically measure down to about 20 parts per million, and now it can measure down to 10 parts per million. So, it's about half of what that FDA approved level is for gluten free in your packaged goods. It also can measure across wheat, rye, and barley.
Wow.
Before, it was really measuring mainly for wheat. And
Okay.
so, as you know, right, there's rye, there's barley, there's things that are hidden in oats,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to be able to measure them. And so now we can measure across all three of those. In addition, before it was at I think 97% accuracy. It was 20 ppm. Now we're all the way down to 10 ppm, and that's 99% accurate.
That's
So
awesome.
accuracy's improved. There's a bunch of small little things in here, little technical things like the way the LED lights hit the strip and the way the laser measuring guidance is looking at it at the pixel level. So it's even better than the human eyes can see as the strip shows up. So there's a lot of little things that are being fixed. The other or that have been fixed. The other thing is the app. I don't think many people use the old app. And so the new app is one that we want to make sure is useful and valuable for the community. So it not only has your tests on there and results, but we continue to iterate and add new things. Where were you when you took it? Do you want to take a picture of it? And just ideally, we want to
Mm,
create more and more information on
right.
the app, and we want to make sure that it's linked back to your NEMA, and that you can link multiple NEMAs. We know a lot of people that have multiple. So Those are just some of the changes that we've definitely seen. We've also, as a company, have changed. We brought in all new leadership. I have a new chief operating officer. We have new head of product development and business development and so on. We have a new team behind us who is super passionate about this community, right? That same founder I mentioned, right, of RA Capital, he has a son with celiac. He has a daughter with food allergies. So, right, he wants to make sure that this business is strong and sustainable, and it's here for years and years to come for all the people who need it.
That's so awesome. And we had a call, all of the people who are NIMA partners right now, we had a call with you and with team members and with the scientist. And that was so eye-opening for me. Not just because I needed like answers, because I find value in the NIMA. I do find that it's helpful for me. And I'm even a seasoned celiac. Like I feel confident in how I eat out, but I'm always looking for ways to make my gluten-free life easier. Like that is something that I preach online all the time, is like, if it can make your life easier, it's going to just like help reduce the burden that you feel by having celiac disease. And I not only have celiac disease, but I also have type 1 diabetes, and I also have lactose intolerance and soy intolerance. And like, I have all these things that like, going out to eat I'm on high alert, and I am not the only one that's experiencing that. I know that for sure. So having tools that can just help reduce, like, at first, my husband was my first tool. He understood what to do, and I could trust him, and I could know, okay, if I need to run to the bathroom and the waiter comes out, I know he knows how to advocate for me. So he was my first tool. And then, then new apps came out where you could read reviews, and that was another tool. So it's just like, why not add another tool to your tool belt to like help you have confidence? There are so many people that genuinely do not ever eat out because they don't have the confidence. They're scared. They've gotten gluten too many times. Maybe they're an introvert. Maybe they're too scared to ask the questions. And while I do say, it is important for you to speak up, it is important for you to advocate for yourself, the NIMA can just be another tool to help with that and give you peace of mind and give you confidence. And so when we were on the call and listening to the scientists chatting about all the cool improvements, I was just like, wow, I was so fascinated, and that was really cool. And I'm like, I wish everyone was on this Zoom call so that they could like hear how awesome this is and see the difference between NIMA then versus NIMA now. I think it's really, really cool. So I have a couple of other questions that I want to ask you. So you had said that the NIMA tests down to 10 parts per million, which is awesome. So we're getting, which I think I'm correct. In other countries, the standard is 10 ppm. Like, I'm pretty sure in Australia, the standard is 10 ppm. And
they're actually looking at, certain countries are even looking at 5,
wow,
making that the standard, which is very difficult from being from the nutrition space and working for manufacturers historically. It is extremely difficult and very expensive for them to be able to clean the machinery and all of that in between. And so that's exactly why the FDA has allowed 20 parts per million, because it's so difficult for manufacturers to actually be truly gluten-free.
Wow.
But if you want to really keep people safe, lower is better.
Yeah, lower is better. I had some multiple, like on my last video, I had multiple people ask, well, how do I clean the capsule and do another test? So I just want to clarify, the capsules are a one-time use. So when you purchase a package of the capsules, it comes with 6 capsules, and you test whatever you're planning on testing, and then after you get your result, you throw that capsule away. So you're not ever cleaning or anything like that. You're going to get the test from what you test, and then you change the capsule if you're planning on testing something else in that meal. And I've seen other content creators, testing multiple things, and there may be times when you need to test multiple things, but I would say, based on my experience, and because I do feel so confident with my advocacy skills, chances of every single item on my plate needing to be tested is pretty slim because of things being naturally gluten-free. There's so many things that are naturally gluten-free. It's just okay, maybe it's the maybes where you're like, I'm not 100% sure, but I do feel like most of the time I feel pretty confident of where risk was low, or I think that's one of the biggest complaints is like, well, it's too expensive to test every single thing that comes out on my plate.
That's right.
And that's maybe not always going to be the case. There may be times where it is, and I'm not going to say that that's never going to happen, but I would say majority of the time you don't need to test every single thing on your plate. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think one of the most important thing is how you're sampling. So when you think about the lab work that we did with BIA Diagnostics, where we were able to show 99% accuracy at detecting gluten at the 10 ppm level, that was in a lab setting, right? So we had meatballs and muffins and all kinds of other things that were made to contain a specific amount of gluten. And then pieces of those were taken and used to test. So it was very much, we knew exactly how much gluten, and we wanted to make sure that we matched what the ELISA tests in the lab had. That was the goal. So when you actually are eating out, it's not as simple as that, right? And this is where you mentioned this earlier, but NIMA is a tool. It's one of the tools. And so it's going to be very important for family, friends, healthcare professionals, all of that. You've got to, make sure you're working with them. You've got to be reading labels. You've got to be looking at the gluten-free menu. You've got to be checking your apps. You've got to be aware of cross-contact and be able to have the conversation with a waiter. And then NIMA comes in, right? And so if you've done all of that and you're still not totally sure if that sauce has gluten, or if the, specific type of food, if that meat was, marinated in something, that's where NIMA comes in. And so part of it is understanding that and knowing what to test, what not to. If you can imagine, we also would love to advance our app to get to a point where it is AI enabled on, to take a picture of your plate, basically, where it could tell you where are the hot spots, where are the areas that are most likely to have gluten because of the type of food, or because of, grill marks or sauces, things like that. And so those are the things that we would love to add on. And we're actively looking at things like that because we want to help the people using the NIMA to sample better, right? So that when they're sampling, they aren't wasting capsules, and they are going to be much more accurate in terms of their ability to measure, is this safe for me or not, right? Because it really, in the end, it does come down to what you're sampling, how you're sampling it, and making sure that you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a lot of people's hold up too, is like, well, it's not financially, like I can't financially like test every single thing on my plate. And I'm like, well, that's where your skills come in first. Like you have to use your own skills. And I was thinking of another scenario because my husband and I were talking about this because, it's been a hot topic, and I'm like, I don't know. So many people are talking so bad about it. I feel like it's a great tool. And he was like, as a husband of somebody with celiac disease, like I think it's also so awesome because there's just a million different scenarios that you can be put in that you are out, like that the food is out of your control. And this is like the perfect example. My mother-in-law works in food service, and she works like in the kitchens in like big corporate buildings. So they feed all the employees lunches, and that's where she's working. And so she'll sometimes bring home food, and it's a bunch of salmon left over from the day. And she'll bring it and she'll be like, the chef told me that it was gluten-free, so I brought home the salmon. But did I get to ask any follow-up questions? No. And I don't feel personally safe eating something that my mother-in-law just said, oh, the chef told me that this was gluten-free. Whereas I didn't get to ask, oh, is this cooked on the same flat top? Or what's the seasoning? Or, those would be questions that I would ask if I was eating at the table and could ask the waiter to go ask the chef, right? But because I didn't have that chance and it was just food brought to me from my mother-in-law, I was like, oh, I should just test this with the NIMA, because if she's saying that the chef said it was gluten-free, then there's at least knowledge, right? There's at least knowledge that the chef knows that this is a gluten-free food. But I didn't get to ask my question, so I'm going to use the NIMA to test the salmon. And so many people are having that experience.
Was it positive? Or Could you
Yeah,
eat it?
it came back with a smiley face. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
All right.
anyway, it's just really, really awesome to like have that because otherwise I would just, my family can eat the salmon and I'm not going to eat it. But how many times have we as celiacs been given food that somebody wanted to make us something,
Hmm.
but we weren't there to oversee, like, oh, did you clean the kitchen first, or did you clean the equipment, or did you use the same measuring cup for the flour and the brown sugar? We're thinking all of these things when somebody else prepares food for us. So to have the NEMA in that scenario where somebody else prepares the food for you, that's where I'm finding it to be the most helpful for me.
Yeah.
But then also, products that are labeled gluten free but don't have a gluten free certification. And you're like, okay, where's the line here? Because I don't see any gluten containing ingredients, but I could also be worried about maybe this being processed on the same line or in the
Hmm.
same facility or something, right? So, depending on what your level of comfort is, I would say, is how you're going to use the NEMA and how often you're going to use it, right? But again, it's
And
just a tool.
yeah, and just to address the cost aspect is, yeah, it is an expensive product to make. And
Hmm.
so today, the way it is made is, it is something that can be cost prohibitive to certain people. I think the two things I want to call out though is one, using it to your point, Lauren, is you don't have to use it every day. You don't have to use it for every meal. You can be choiceful, and for things that you're super confident about, don't waste a capsule.
Right.
The other thing though is we do have the ability now for you to use your HSA or FSA card. Right. And so
Cool.
any of the money that you're putting into that health savings account, that flexible savings account at work, you are now able to save on whatever those taxes are that you would have normally paid. And then you can use that to buy capsules or to buy another sensor. And we are also offering on our site a payment plan where you could basically spread it over
Okay.
12 months. And so we're doing what we can to, I would say, make it as accessible as possible. Ultimately, where I think we need to go, you mentioned your type 1 diabetes. My nephew is as well, right? He wears a continuous glucose monitor. If you are a diabetic, you get a continuous glucose monitor. If you have a peanut allergy, you get an announcement on the airplane before it takes
Mhm.
off. If you have celiac, what do you get?
Nothing yet.
Right. So ideally, how can we make sure that people with celiac um, are accommodated
Yeah.
properly? And, it's not just having that kind of separate meal, because to your point, how do you know that it was safe? And so how do we make sure that people can feel more confident and fully enjoy and live their lives, and not be in constant fear of getting glutened?
Yeah.
And so I'm all for whatever we can do to get there, whether it's with the NEMA or not. But what legislation needs to be put in place for things like that? So that's where we need to go.
That would be really cool if, if it was considered like a medical device for a disease that you obviously have evidence, your doctor,
That's
your
right.
insurance will cover a percentage of it or whatever. That would be really, really awesome. I mean,
Yes.
a diabetic needs insulin to live. And I'm not saying that this is like, oh, well, I have to have this to live, but how awesome would it be for insurance to get involved in some way so that it could be a,
Uh, 100%. And so this is, we want to go there. It's just a very weird category for insurance. Insurance is used to like medical devices and drugs and surgeries. This is a
Mhm.
food detector. And
Yeah.
and so it doesn't really fit a clean category. But like I said, this is where we need to make some changes here, and this is definitely something that I'm passionate about, of what can we do to make sure that people with celiac are accommodated in whatever way possible. And that may, like I said, that may or may not be with the NEMA. It might just be with better testing. It might be with better food available at work and at school. But
Yeah.
somehow we need to make sure that this group is better taken care of.
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes me so happy that you like have our best interest heart, like you care about us, and
I do.
you're seeing firsthand how it's affecting us, and you've seen firsthand with working in the food allergy space too.
Yep.
I want to address something that I did see online, because the NEMA does have some limitations. So I want to talk about that just so people know up front before they purchase the NEMA what the limitations are. So can you tell
Yep.
us what the NEMA can't, maybe like textures or certain foods that the NEMA can't detect?
Yep. There's so when it comes to hydrolyzed wheat, so these are like fermented foods. That is, let me just explain real quick. This strip right here, okay, it picks up basically gliadin. It picks up the protein from the gluten, and so if that protein is not in the wheat, or if it's fermented or hydrolyzed, then this will have a really tough time picking it up. And so as you start to think about certain foods, there are going to be certain foods, alcohol like beer, there's certain things that are just more difficult to pick up because of how they're processed. And there's also other things that are more they're able to pick up, but they might need a little bit of help. So for instance, if you just put straight powder, if you just put your daily protein powder in there, if it's just protein and then it mixes with the buffer, it might get a little globby and clog. And ultimately what we need to do is the buffer is right in the middle here. The food drops in the buffer, mixes, it grinds, it extracts the protein, and then it runs it up the strip to measure, does this have gluten? And if it's too thick, it won't run up the strip.
Can't go up there. Okay.
Even if it's angled, right? So it sits like this. So it's angled, and even if you try running a test, you'll get a note that says keep it stood up. So you want to keep it completely still like this, to allow the liquid to run down and go up the strip. And so you could imagine if it's like a protein powder, if it is a peanut butter or a cream cheese, there's certain things that are going to be a little bit tougher. And so what you want to do is you want to add a little bit of water, basically, because it doesn't need much. And what we find is the majority of issues are just oversampling. You try to fill the entire chamber, and you just don't need to. Just putting a pea size amount is what we call it, but just a very, very small amount. You could also dab the teeth of the cap on certain things, and so that'll pick up some other elements. And then ultimately, if it is super dry like cracker powder, or if it is super sticky like a cream cheese or a peanut butter, you're going to want to add a little water to this.
Okay.
And so we are trying to do a better job of explaining this. I think what we are going to be doing is basically offering some specific kind of step-by-step instructions, right? If you have something that's kind of sticky, step-by-step, here's what to do. For powder, step-by-step. For fermented, unfortunately, you could test it, but I think the result will lead to an error, or it'll just automatically say gluten found. Even if there's no gluten. And so the fermented one's probably the most difficult for this to actually measure.
Well, that's helpful to know, because then that way you need to be asking those questions, right? Like if you're at a restaurant and there's Asian food and you're like, oh, is it gluten-free soy sauce? That's when you need to say, hey, can you confirm to me that you use the gluten-free soy sauce, or can you not put soy sauce on mine and bring me the gluten-free bottle so I can put it on myself? There's things that you can do to be like, I'm going to control this scenario instead of rely on the NEMA to find the soy sauce or whatever, right?
Yep.
So
that's a great example. That's right.
Yeah. That's helpful to know, because, you don't want to, it's frustrating to feel like you've wasted a capsule, right? Because you paid for that capsule.
Totally.
So knowing and having all of the information about how the NEMA works, going on your guys' website, there's a lot of information on Instagram, there's a lot of information on your site, and just knowing what the limitations are so that you don't accidentally waste a capsule, that's also very helpful. And I wanted that to be clarified, because I don't want somebody to be frustrated with that.
Yeah, and just one more thing, because I know some people will try to use this for cosmetics, lotions. It has not been tested for that. And you could imagine, right, there's a million different kinds of cosmetics and lotions and different things that you might put on your body. You know, talking to clinicians and doctors out there, the only thing that they say to worry about is really lipstick, something that ultimately you're going to ingest.
Right.
But we have not actually done the test to see how accurate this is with makeup and lipstick and lotions. So just want to call that out. This is for food.
That's great. That's really great to know. And I mean, people in this space, at least in my community, my audience is like 98% female. So I've talked about, you know, gluten-free makeup, and we know that, you know, the makeup that we put on our face, what we put on and around our mouth needs to be gluten-free. And you know, sometimes we have to research and Google, like, is this brand gluten-free? Or you only, sometimes I only purchase like gluten-free branded makeup because I'm like, okay, they recognize themselves as a gluten-free brand, that all of their products are gluten-free, and I trust in that. So that's really helpful. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So I want to talk about really quickly, like, cross contact, because you know, we're trying to pick up really small things, and sometimes we hope that a restaurant has our best interest in mind, and that they're not using the same utensils, they're not using the same cutting board, they're doing all of the allergy protocols, right? Is cross contact able to be detected with the NIMA sensor if it's just, like, same knife, same utensils, same cutting board, etc.?
So the way NIMA works, as I shared earlier, it's measuring the proteins from the gluten. And as long as it's at a certain level, right, as long as it's at 10 ppm or higher, then, you know, we know with 99% accuracy that NIMA is going to measure it.
Yeah.
So it's really just a matter of how much cross contact, and as long as it's enough, I would say. You know, from some data I've seen out there in terms of different studies, there is a point where the amount of gluten that somebody with celiac is exposed to will trigger a reaction or not. It'll upset their villi or not. And what it seems like is it's kind of above this 10 milligram amount, which is very small, by the way. But that's kind of the point where it will have an impact. And so as you kind of look at it, you know, 10 ppm is a pretty low amount. And so if we're not measuring it, then most likely it is safe. There is not enough cross contact. Even if there's a little bit, it's not enough to be measurable above that level to cause damage.
Right.
So, and then it's just a matter of, I think you mentioned this earlier, of just knowing where to sample from. So, you know, if it's certain things from a cross contact standpoint that you're more concerned with, based on, you know, where something was on a grill, or maybe what type of utensil was used on it. And some of that's going to come with kind of experience, and obviously asking those questions, right? Was everything cleaned and washed before mine was touched? And if there's a little concern, confusion, okay, let's test that area.
Right. I've said this so many times on the podcast and on my social media, but like, if my waiter doesn't act confident or feel confident, I am not going to feel confident eating there. But if I have a positive experience where the staff is like, yep, we have protocols in place, or let me go get my manager because they, you know, I want them to be able to explain this to you. Those are signs that the restaurant is aware. Those are signs that they are familiar with food sensitivities or celiac disease or allergies in general. But if your staff is like, I'm pretty sure that's gluten-free, I'm like, you're not confident enough for me to trust you. I don't trust you. And so, you know, you have to use your gut. You've got to use your gut and your conscious to help you make decisions. And that's also a part of celiac disease, right? So doing your part, the NIMA shouldn't take away, like, the NIMA shouldn't eliminate your need to ask questions. You still need to ask
Absolutely
questions.
Not. Yes. And, you know, I'm looking at my little list here because I kind of see it as NIMA's like the sixth thing that you should be doing, right? And it starts with the people around you. And to your point, it's your husband, or it could be your healthcare professional or your parents, whomever it is. those people need to be there to help and protect you. Then there's food and ingredient labels, there's apps, there's having those questions, there's being aware of cross contact and where you should be concerned, and then there's the NEMA, right?
Right.
So as long as you're thinking about it the right way, NEMA should be one of those tools in your toolkit to help keep you safe. But there is no silver bullet, unfortunately. Celiac is lifelong, you know this, and you have to remain vigilant. And NEMA hopefully can help you feel more freedom, feel more confidence, and stay safe. But it's just one of the things that you're going to have to do.
Yeah, it's not the only thing that you do, and I think that's
right.
Really, really important for people to understand that yeah, just you saying all those things, it's a lifelong disease. There is no cure for this disease right now, and we do have to be vigilant. And I know that maybe that feels so overwhelming for some of you right now, and my heart hurts for people that are like, I hate this right now. This is so hard for me right now. There are people listening that are in that stage of celiac disease. And this is like my call to you to tell you the NEMA could be a really great tool for you. But if you're going, I don't see the value in this right now in my life because I feel really good about it, I'm not forcing you to buy this. Neither is Mike. We know that there's different categories and different stages of where you're at with celiac disease for sure.
Yep.
Okay, I have one last question for you. If someone's listening and they're feeling skeptical about the NEMA right now, what would you want them to understand before they ultimately make up their mind?
I think we've talked a lot about it. To me, this is one more tool in your toolkit to help keep you safe and enjoy your life. The other thing I would say is check out our website and you'll see you could pay using your HSA, FSA, you could do a payment plan, and we also have a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you do buy it, try it, use it on a few meals, test those gluten-free things in your pantry. And if you don't believe in it and you don't feel this is going to help you, then return it. And so that's another piece that, we are confident because we know from people like yourself that there is value here. So yeah, we'd love just to see more and more people safe. And like I said, we are going to continue to work these other angles as well from a regulatory legislative standpoint of what can we do to make sure that celiac continues to rise up to be top of mind. So all the restaurants know, and they've got protocols similar to what you hear about in Italy and Finland and some of these other countries. So I need to go do some market research one of these days, but I hear they're great.
I need to get over to Italy. Same.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I think this is going to be a really valuable episode for my listeners because, I'm going to keep talking about it online. There's a lot of influencers that are also talking about it, which, guys, that's called influencer marketing. There's athletes that wear Nike and get paid to wear Nike. A lot of people are saying like, well, you're just getting paid to use the NEMA. And I'm like, no, I use the NEMA. I like it. It's a great tool for me. And brands pay people to help with advertising. That is advertising. So, those people who are saying like, these are just like money hungry influencers that are posting about this. I'm like, I want you to know that is not what is happening from me. And that's not the mission of NEMA either. They're just looking for help, right? To get the word out about this new awesome.
And I'll tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves is exactly what you said, is the artificial, the fake influencers. And so for us, we wanted to make sure anyone that we talk to your point, is actively using it, wants to partner with us, sees value in it. We meet with them, we answer questions, we make sure you understand the technology and the science behind it, and you meet the people behind it. And so this is very important to us to make sure if you are going to represent NEMA, you're doing it in a transparent way that we want to see our brand represented. And so, we are careful with who we partner with, and hopefully that shows up.
Yeah, definitely. I just had to tell you, I can't remember if I told you on the call we were on last week, but I had a mom message me and she's like, my daughter's had celiac disease for a couple of years and I feel like I've done a pretty good job at like showing her how to advocate, and she's watched me do it. And she's like, but now she's like a teenager and I'm sending her out to like friends' houses, and I'm she's leaving the nest in a sense where like she's leaving the home. And I'm so happy that that the Nima is back. This is what she said. Like, I'm so happy that the Nima is back because I feel like I can give this to her and send her out the door and feel a little bit more peace of mind because I'm not there to be with her for every scenario that she's in. And I was like, wow, that just like made me so happy because I'm like, listen, like there are people that are like, this is going to make a huge difference in the peace that I feel as a parent. Or, you know, again, so many scenarios that the Nima is a great tool. So I'm going to put the link for purchasing the Nima sensor. You guys can get a discount with my code. I'll include the code in the show notes for the Nima sensor. Like Mike said, try it. You can use it for 30 days. There's payment plans, there's options, there's HSA. All of these things are available to you. So check the show notes for the link to purchase. Go follow Nima on Instagram. I'll also link their Instagram as well so that you can see all of the content that they're sharing as well. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Mike, before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Just thank you so much, Lauren, for having me on the show, and look forward to many more Nima users to come.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. We hope you have an awesome gluten-free week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.